Dominick J. Ferrara III, a community leader and civic band director, whose dedicated leadership and community service spanned nearly 5 decades, as he was the conductor of the Bloomfield Civic Band for 43 years, president of Bloomfield Federation of Music, president of the Bloomfield chapter of Unico National, president of the Bloomfield Cultural Commission, and bandmaster and chief warrant officer, New Jersey Army National Guard. At this point in time, we'd like to have the Bloomfield Chorale, directed by Ruth Hugh, sing God Bless America. The next gentleman that I'm going to bring up is Paul Alongi, who is the past president of Unico National, past president of the Civic Band, and past president of the Bloomfield Federation of Music. When I first started working here, I always thought Paul and Dominick were twins. Every time I saw one, I saw the other. And they were always doing something for the Bloomfield Federation of Music, and in particular, the Bloomfield Civic Band. So a tribute to a leader, servant, and friend by Paul Alongi.
Thank you, Michael. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the town council of the Township of Bloomfield for this great recognition in honor of my friend Dominick Ferrara. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank also a great friend of ours, a woman that's really been a companion to Dominick and is to his memory. She's relentless in really honoring his memory. She's a person that probably put this all together today. Paul Zacombe. Where's Paul? We are. Thank you very much. And I'd like to thank my friends at Bloomfield Unico, our president, former chief of police, Michael Cisco, and all the Bloomfield Unico members who are here today to pay tribute to Dominick Ferrara. Thank you. Michael Sceurman just basically started to talk about Dominick's achievements in the community. When Dominick came into Bloomfield, he took over the band, the Bloomfield Civic Band, but he brought with him his band members from the National Guard. They were really the first people that started to build the Bloomfield Civic Band up again. And then he involved himself at that particular point with the Bloomfield Federation of Music. And he never stopped being involved at that particular point. Throughout the years, he was a director and he was a president of the Bloomfield Federation of Music. Maybe you don't know this, but Dominick was also a district leader. He served many facets of the community. And then he sought a membership on the Bloomfield Cultural Commission, and after a short time, he became the president of the Bloomfield Cultural Commission. Then, about 34 years ago, he said to me, Paul, he says, I'd like to start the Garden State Concert Band. And together we founded the Garden State Concert Band. And basically, at that time, we had tremendous musicians, and we played all over the state of New Jersey and even New York at Carnegie Hall. And then Dominick got himself involved at the church. He was a church leader at St. Thomas. But then I was able to incorporate him into Bloomfield Unico, and that was some 40-some years ago. And he and Phyllis took it to heart, and they became members of the Unico and the Ladies Auxiliary. And Dominick served 2 terms as president of Bloomfield Unico. So in essence, he was all around the community, lending of his talents and of himself and his family to the community. But Dominick majored in one thing. First of all, Dominick was a musical genius. He had perfect pitch. And you could tell as he talked to him, sometimes you could see the music vibrating in his head, in his brain. He was always thinking about music. And he's very talented. He played multi-instruments. He played all the saxophones. He played bassoon. He played bass clarinet. He played keyboard. In fact, he told me of the one time that he played bassoon for Judy Garland, and it was a tremendous event. And Dominick taught at Secaucus High School. He was a musical supervisor for 25 years. So in addition to being an instrument player, a conductor, he was a teacher. And he was a teacher, he was a mentor to all the young people in our band. We took the young people in our band at 13, 14 years old, and they now are tremendous professional musicians or educators or whatsoever. They're here today. I see them in the crowd. I see Pat Byrne, who's president of the Bloomfield Federation of Music. I see Frank Ortega, who's our conductor director. I think Frank was about 14 or 15 when he joined. I see Barry Santani, professional percussionist, plays the Broadway shows. I see Tom Mulvaney, plays the percussion at the Broadway shows. I see Mike Lamparella, an educator, trumpet player. I see Mike Sylvester, who was an integral part of our band. And I see some of our associates that we played here to pay tribute to them. I see Phil Echo, Frank Petrucci. These are all the people that for years, and I'm not talking about 2-3 years, we played together for many years. When you play together, you're not only members, but you become almost like brothers in arms because you depend upon each other, to give a good performance. So Dominick's really talent, as far as I can sum it up, was to integrate himself and teach young people his profession. And he was so proud of the way they turned out. Lastly, let me tell you about Dominick Ferrara, my friend. At the time of Dominick's death, I had known Dominick for 70 years. We were in the Boy Scouts together. I was his troop leader. I was 5 years older than Dominick. And then we went to the same high school, Barringer High School, but I graduated way before him. But we had the same teacher, saxophone teacher, so we played together in a sax ensemble when he was like about 13 and I was like about 17 or 18. We played together for many years. And then I lost track of Dominick. I went on to law school and went on to my professional law. And there was a time I gave up music because I was so busy with my profession. And then one day, we saw Dominick and Phyllis and his children outside of St. Thomas, myself and my wife. And myself and my wife knew Dominick and Phyllis. My wife, Tony, worked with Phyllis, so she knew her. From that moment on, and that was like in 1975, we came brothers and sisters together. You couldn't separate Tony and Phyllis. You could never separate. In fact, when we were in New Orleans, people used to take them as twins. We were always together. In any event, Dominick at that time had just come into Bloomfield from Vailsburg, and that's when he started conducting. And he said to me, Paul, he says, do you want to go back to playing music? I says, of course, I missed it so much. So he brought me into the Civic Band. 1 week later, I was president of the Civic Band. That's why he brought me into the band, I think. Anyway, I was president for 42 years. I worked along with Dominick in the Civic Band. And we also worked in the Bloomfield Federation together. And the tribute we had to our friendship was that our wives loved each other like sisters. Our children loved each other like brothers and sisters. And we had a tremendous relationship, something that you can never forget. And it sort of culminated one night. I realized how close Dominick was to me. He called me up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock. Says, Paul, you have to come with me. I said, where? He says, to the hospital. I think Phyllis has died. So I went to the hospital, and we consoled each other. And his beautiful wife had died. She was the brains behind the outfit, believe me. He was the musical genius, but he was the brain. She was the brains. You can't say too much for a friend, but I could only tell you that the memories are there. the memories here in Bloomfield are there for Dominick Ferrara, and it's such a tribute to the recognition he's deserving of today again, once in his life. God bless Dominick Ferrara. May he rest in peace.
Thank you, Paul, for that heartfelt speech. We're very fortunate here in Bloomfield. The Bloomfield Recreation Department this past year has expanded its reach into our community by becoming the Bloomfield Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department. We are very, very fortunate here in Bloomfield. We have a very progressive mayor and council. Our Board of Recreation Commissioners are extremely supportive. And we have one of the longest running music federations and Bloomfield art leagues in the state of New Jersey. I know Paul alluded to it, but we have kind of the five families, so to say, of the Music Federation, which is our civic band, our youth band, our chorale, our mandolin orchestra, and our symphony orchestra, which all put on performances throughout the calendar year and have done so, I think, for well over, I think it's over 80 decades, I believe. So over 80 years. And they're still going strong. So one of the things that people ask, how could we, pay tribute to Dominick and keep his legacy going? It's by supporting these ensembles, supporting the art league, supporting the arts, supporting music here in Bloomfield, which I know our community does, and we're fortunate to have them playing with us here today. Now, I only took 2 years of Italian in college, so I'm going to try my best with this one. We're going to have the Bloomfield Mandolin Orchestra with conductor Enrico Granife is going to play Sonia, Dunia, Virgine, and Omari. Not bad, right? And this is arranged by Gabe Navola, who was a long-time conductor of the Mandolin Orchestra as well. The Bloomfield Mandolin Orchestra.
Without further ado, Frank Ortega, conductor of the Bloomfield Civic Band.
Thank you. I have to first say what a privilege and honor it is to serve in Dominick's stead, to be the next civic band conductor. I was in the civic band as a young man, as Paul said, when I was about 15 years old, 16 years old, and no one was more surprised than me when I applied and auditioned for the group and became the next conductor. Just wanted a little anecdote about Dominick. On my first concert, which was about 5 years ago, I conducted On the Green, just a piece, and he put me on the spot. He gave me a piece, and I had to sight read it with the band, and it was very tricky, and I was very nervous. And Dominick introduced me in such a way. He said, "I want to introduce you to Frank Ortega, the next civic band conductor. He's a tuba player. I've known him since he was very young, and he'd come over my house, he'd drink all my beer and drink all my wine. Frank Ortega, everybody." That was Dominick. Before he passed, Dominick spent a season or two playing with us. I felt very privileged to have him there. It was wonderful. And he decided, when he dissolved the Garden State Concert Band, that he would bequeath some of the money from that organization into Bloomfield Civic Band, and we came up with the idea of having a scholarship fund for him that would be for many years in advance. And so right now I'd like to introduce you to the recipients of those scholarships and also the Unico Scholarship. So this is the Dominick Ferrara Scholarship recipients from the Civic Band. For 2016, it was Oliver Nicholson, who attends Manhattanville College. Last year it was Tristan Shaffrin, who attends Rutgers University as a music education major. And this year the recipient is Hannah Nosh, who will be attending the University of Delaware in the fall as a music education major as well. Then there was also the Dominick and Phyllis Memorial Scholarship, Dominick Ferrara and Phyllis Ferrara Memorial Scholarship by Unico. And those recipients, now forgive me if I don't pronounce your names right, if you're here, Christina Iacovone, or Iacovone, Sarah Casales, who's 2017, Christina went to Montclair State University, is going to Montclair State University. Sarah Basales was the 2017 recipient, is going to Notre Dame University. And Michaela Ryan is the 2018 recipient and will be going to Rutgers University Mason's Gross School of the Arts. So how wonderful that these students get to continue in Dominick's stead as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. At this time, I'd like to bring up the mayor of beautiful Bloomfield, New Jersey, Mayor Michael J. Venezia.
Good evening, everyone. This was a wonderful tribute to Dominick. He was a absolute gentleman. I had the pleasure of getting to know Dominick about 10, 12 years ago when I joined Unico, and him, Paul, and a couple other people recommended me to be part of the Christopher Columbus essay contest, and then they got me to become the scholarship chair, and then the executive board, which I since had to resign from. But Dominick was always a great guy. He was a gentleman, and I always appreciated him. With me here tonight, I have Councilman Nick Joanno, Councilman Ted Gamble. We have freeholder Carlos Pomares here with us. We have former Mayor Ray McCarthy. We have our Township Administrator Matt Watkins. Our former Police Chief Mike Cisco. And also our Recreation Commissioner Louis Felix. You know, Paula Zaccone. Where's Paula right now? Let's give Paula a big round of applause, because, you know, she came to me with this, and I said, absolutely. I said, but you have to do all the legwork. And she was very proud to do it, and when we unveil the stone and the rock, it's going to be something the township's going to be very proud of. Tonight I'm going to read a proclamation in Dominick's honor. Whereas Dominick J. Ferrara III performed almost 5 decades of community service and leadership within Bloomfield and beyond, and after serving as a conductor of the Bloomfield Civic Band for 43 years, and whereas having served as president of the Bloomfield Federation of Music, and whereas having served as president of the Bloomfield chapter of Unico National, and whereas having served as president of the Bloomfield Cultural Commission, whereas having served as a bandmaster and chief warrant officer of the New Jersey National Guard, and now therefore I, Mayor Michael J. Venezia, as mayor of the Township of Bloomfield, along with members of the Township Council, hereby honor Dominick J. Ferrara III with a stone commemorative positioned on the lawn of the Bloomfield Civic Center across from the Bloomfield Township Green.
So I think it would only be fitting if at this time, if we could have the conductors of Mandolin Orchestra. I know Frank is here. I believe Pat Burns here? Someone said Pat was here. You could come up and help us unveil the rock. I think Paula, you should come up here as well. And Paula Langi. I also see Luis Palagano, our township clerk here, and also Louis Felix, our recreation commissioner. So I want to welcome them and thank them for coming too. I think we should be able to pull the rope, but I did bring scissors just in case. I want to thank Martin O'Boyle Landscape for helping us do the landscape here last week, and also Essex County helped. They donated the rock, and they were actually able to set the plaque inside the rock for us. I was almost able to lift it, but we did need the crane.
Okay, so without further ado, the Township of Bloomfield officially unveils the Dominick J. Ferrara III plaque on the Bloomfield Civic Center next to the Township Historic Green. So to conclude our ceremony tonight, we are going to have the Bloomfield Chorale.